Class, your attention, please.
Your teacher has a rule. School is cool.
Attention, everybody. Class is in session. I am the Professor Tyler Wolf, joined once again by the Prodigy, Anthony Cerulli. Can I say that right?
Yes, you did, of course.
Of course.
You're the professor.
I know all of my students.
You know all,
right?
yes, of course.
Sir Anthony, how are you doing this fine day?
Sir Tyler, I'm doing quite well. Today was the first day of school back in actual college school. So my first class got canceled, so I didn't have to go in today. But thankfully, I have another class to get to.
So Professor Wolf over here had lots of homework for you to do today.
Absolutely, and I did all of it.
Before we get into that, let's just say a big thank you to everybody that has tuned in and listened to the first couple episodes. We really appreciate it. Very much appreciate the feedback. Why don't you hit everybody up with the social media in case anybody wants to suggest a match to teach young Anthony about over here.
100%. And of course, the social medias will be on the screen throughout this episode if you're watching on YouTube. But if you're listening to us on Spotify or anywhere else that you can find your podcast, you can follow us on Instagram at Classic Match Classroom, all one word, obviously. And then over on Twitter at CM Classroom, not to be confused with CM Punk, CM Classroom. And like to echo what the professor has said, thank you so much for all of the great feedback. Our YouTube channel is up and running. We have a few loyal subscribers already, and we know that number is going to keep going all the way up. So keep showing your support. It goes a long way.
Perfect. And of course, all episodes are also posted on www.canada7.com.
Yes, sir.
Have to plug our stuff, right?
The number one website that you could find the Classic Match Classic.
That's it. So let's get down to business today. Last week, the last 2 weeks, I should say, we took a very deep dive into a very serious feud that turned into a blood feud between Bret Hart and Stone Cold Steve Austin. We're going a little bit different now.
Just a tad bit.
Just a tad bit. We're going all the way back to about 1988 to 1989. And we are in the middle of Hulkamania running wild. We're going to look at the build up to the Mega Powers exploding, the Macho Man, Randy Savage, your WWF World Champion versus the immortal Hulk Hogan, Miss Elizabeth Sandwich in the middle there. How do you want to compare the builds from Bret and Austin to Hogan and Savage?
Can you even compare these two builds? I mean, I think what the major difference that I saw was that whereas you had Bret and Austin, who have two completely different styles, one of them more calm, collected, but very technical based, while the other is brash, bold, and explosive in the ring. Here, you have basically two of the same wrestler with just different catchphrases and different movesets, same energy, same charisma, and you put them up against each other, and it is a complete craze fest, if you want to call it that. And it was definitely a change of pace from these last 2 weeks, and I can't say I hated it, but I do have some critiques that we'll get into.
So is this the first kind of, obviously you've seen Hulk Hogan matches before, but is this kind of the first time you've seen Hulk Hogan in the prime of, this is about coming towards the tail end of the prime of Hulkamania. Hulkamania is still running wild right now. But is this kind of the first time that you've gotten to experience any of the build and just seeing Hulkamania in his prime?
I wouldn't say that I haven't seen some of it. I've seen a lot of the moments that we're going to get into with Elizabeth. This is kind of the first time that I've seen him in action as far as I don't want to say like a lengthy match, but this was definitely not your typical Hogan, gets beat down, comes back and wins kind of thing. It was more of a lengthy, told a story, the match, which obviously we'll tell as we go along with this episode. Most of what I've seen from Hogan in his WWF prime, if you want to call it that, is I saw a lot of Hogan Andre, that whole feud, the match. And to this day, it's probably one of my favorite classic feuds of all time. So this was definitely a change of pace in that now, like I mentioned earlier on, you have someone that kind of equals Hogan and they kind of bounce off of each other. throughout this story. So it was definitely really cool to see Hogan in this spot. And at the same time, it was even more interesting to see Savage here because I've seen much more of Hogan than I have of Savage. This is kind of one of the first main feuds that I've seen of his.
Okay.
And yeah, I mean, it was really fun all around.
If Twitter was alive in 1989, people would talk about Randy Savage like he was Dolph Ziggler. You know what I mean? Like, I think everybody wanted Savage to be the guy. People would be losing their mind. Savage should be the best. He should be everything, and blah, 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 blah. And hey, man, I don't disagree either. Savage was awesome. And he was awesome in this feud. And we have to start this feud with Savage. Are we ready to take you back all the way?
Ring the bell because class is in session.
Our lesson begins all the way back shortly after WrestleMania 3. The Macho Man Randy Savage has just dropped the Intercontinental title to Ricky the Dragon Steamboat, and he's finding himself in uncharted territories. He is being turned face. And the people have kind of turned the Macho Man face. I think he was starting to get that face reaction towards the end of his run here. And really, how could you not? He had the beautiful woman on his side. He had the charisma. He had the in-ring talent. And he had just that overall it factor that you cannot teach people. So we're going to fast forward a little bit here. Savage is a full-blown face now. And he is in a program with the Intercontinental Champion. Some would say the greatest Intercontinental Champion of all time. That some would be himself, the Honky Tonk Man. A little backstory on this angle before we get into it here. Macho Man was actually slated to go over the Honky Tonk Man and become the Intercontinental Champion. But Honky refused to do the job. So could you imagine if Savage went over Honky? We might not have even got WrestleMania 4. I think Savage would have been the IC champ instead.
Wow, yeah.
So, but we're jumping ahead a little bit. Let's talk about the first angle here. The first clip that I sent you. The Macho Man has just finished facing the Honky Tonk Man, and he's in a lot of trouble. He's being beat down by the Hart Foundation, by the Honky Tonk Man. Jimmy Hart's got all these guys all over him, and Honky is about to just destroy the Macho Man with a guitar. And who comes into the ring for the save? Miss Elizabeth, pleading her case. Please don't hurt my man. And the Honky Tonk Man grabs her and just throws her down like a piece of garbage.
Go back guitar. Oh no! Oh no! Elizabeth shot down to the canvas by Honky Tonk Man standing over her. Look at that! What humiliation! But at least she saved Randy Savage. That's all she wanted to do, and she's done a good job of it. Elizabeth saving Randy Savage.
Well, look at that, McMahon. When the going gets tough, she gets going. That's why there's no place in sports for women. She's taken off. See you later, Toots. Hit the bricks.
So Miss Elizabeth goes to the back, running away, as some would say, Jesse Ventura. Or Bobby Heenan as well, I believe. Was Bobby Heenan on the call for this one? It was Bobby Heenan.
I think so, yes.
Yes, sorry, I beg my own pardon here. Bobby Heenan was great, basically just making fun of Elizabeth, saying that she didn't deserve to be in there, that she should get hit, all this stuff. Bobby was just hilarious. Elizabeth runs to the back and brings out Hulk Hogan to make the save.
Yep.
And I loved Hogan's facial expressions here. Honky Tonk Man did crack Macho Man with the guitar, laid him out, and then Hogan comes out. Kind of run me through this, Anthony. What are you thinking about watching the first time that the Mega Powers interact with each other, not as enemies?
It's like just when you think you can get away from seeing Bret Hart another week, there he is again, which
That's
I'm
right.
not complaining about. But
What a great atomic drop, Sally.
Oh, very true. Yeah, that was actually going to be my first question to you was, Savage being face. And I guess, like you kind of mentioned that it was more of a natural progression. I was going to ask if there was like a certain point where he turned face, if it was right after WrestleMania 3, because I had only seen heel Savage up until that point. I always wondered, like, when did he make that transition? But I guess if there was ever a time that he definitely turned, it would have been right here. What a shove from Honky
right?
Yeah, he didn't waste. Yeah, he did not like hold back or anything. And I love the call from McMahon where he goes, I think it's after Hogan comes out and they're showing the replays of Elizabeth, and he goes, "She's the type of person to do it again and again. What courage."
I don't think so. I think that just happened. I don't think she figured that would happen. She'll never do it again, though. I'll guarantee you that.
I think she's the kind of person that would do it again and again. What courage, what fortitude she displayed.
Vince McMahon, the unsung commentator of all time.
Yeah,
He knows how to get his stories over.
believe it or not, he's not just a what a maneuver guy. He says a few things every once in a while. Hogan, you already mentioned those facial expressions, but
I love it.
he sold that so well. He literally looked so confused as to why Elizabeth was pulling him out. He's looking at her, and then all of a sudden he makes the face and
when he starts puffing his cheeks out, I was like, let's go, Hollister, get in there.
Marching to the ring.
Yeah.
And oh man, this was a really good way to finally unite these guys. You know, you get not as big of a handshake as you would get later on, but you know, you got to
talk about the handshake.
We'll talk about the handshaking. But you know, you got a nice little handshake to kind of show that union. And then, you know, they just show the replays over and over. Good way to start off this feud. I wish that we would see Honky Tonk Man a little bit more in this feud, you know, because I just feel like this is a cool dynamic. But you know, we would move on and go to other big names.
Yeah, these guys would just kind of do the house show run. They never did anything really on TV with it. They would do, you know, dark matches and house shows as a tag team, handicap matches against the Hart Foundation and Honky Tonk Man. But they wouldn't officially team up on TV until much later, which we'll get to. And how crazy, by the way, was the promo they cut after with Mean Gene.
Hulk Hogan, what is happening?
Well, you know, Mean Gene, we really don't know what we're dealing with here, man. And I'm just kind of a little worried about locking up here.
It's all right.
Because we just might blow the whole planet up, you know.
Well, I'm still in a state of shock right now. In fact, I don't think I'm going to be coming down for a long period of time. Yeah, reckless abandon is what I used to be, yeah. But Elizabeth opened up my eyes, and the big man right here, the big man, yeah, he endorsed Macho Man this, and he gave me direction, yeah.
I'm just worried about where we're going from here. Is it this stratosphere, man? Is it the ionosphere with the madness and the mania as one guiding force? We could go ahead and take the whole
I cannot believe this. And all that has happened here on Saturday night's main event. The Mega Powers, the Madness, Macho Man Randy Savage, and the heavyweight champion and Hulkamania.
I love that the first words out of Hogan's mouth after Mean Gene says everything is that, well, I don't really know what we're dealing with here, dude. He is just like so flustered, like everyone else is just seeing these two you know, crazy you know. And I love that they are putting so much emphasis on this, you know, taking these two guys and putting them together. You know, I guess nowadays you really don't see kind of an emphasis on how these two formed. Whereas tag teams in 2021, if you're two singles guys, you're just put together for the hell of it because we need more tag teams on the Raw division. Whereas now you see Hogan and Savage, we've already established, you know, these guys before the tag team run. Now we're doing a lot to establish their union. And you know, further on, we're going to see them establish their chemistry, and it's all a story at the end of the day.
This would be the equivalent to the 2021 version if you know, John Cena and like Daniel Bryan became a tag team, or CM Punk during when they were all in their peaks there. You know, Cena's the guy and Hogan was the guy, and Bryan or Punk or whoever were the guy like right under that. You know what I mean? They were the top two baby faces, and they really put a lot of emphasis to put them together. I like how you picked up on that as well.
I wanted to ask you a quick question.
Yes.
And this was right as I was watching this first promo, because obviously you're not seeing a contrast in styles here. You're getting the same type of energy. This is really more of an opinion question to you. Who do you like better on the mic? Is it Hogan with the, I know it's a loaded question, we're getting right into it in the classroom, but is it Hogan really with the
heavy questions this week? Because
if anything, with a, like, you know, if I could think of any kind of contrast in style, it's more of Hogan is all the time energy, 100% very loud, whereas Savage is very up and down, where he gets his really big points, and then he goes back down a little bit. Yeah.
So pretty good Macho Man. That's an A+ for that, my friend.
Thank you. I mean, the high pitch voice doesn't really do it much service, but thank you. But what do you enjoy?
I like Savage as a promo better, but I think Hogan has some real banger lines. He cuts a promo leading into SummerSlam 1989, off topic a little bit here, and it's like him and Brutus Beefcake. And he's just talking about, he's like, something, me and brother Brudi were hanging and banging down Venice Beach. And he's talking about like carrying sharks on his back and backstroking to SummerSlam. And like when Hogan wanted to turn it on, he was absolutely hilarious. But as we get further into this build up here, especially when the Mega Powers explode, I think Savage really outshines Hogan on the promos. I think that Hogan's trying to be more serious, but he's still coming off as a little bit hokey. And Hulk Hogan is the weirdest babyface of all time, because I think Bobby Heenan had him figured out, and we'll talk about that later too. Hogan always seems like a heel to me.
Absolutely.
We're getting too many chapters ahead.
I know.
Pull back a little bit.
There's just so much to unpack and not enough time to do it. But yeah, let's pull it back a little bit.
So before we move on, one last point: how great is Mean Gene Okerlund?
Oh my God. I think what WWE is missing nowadays is a Mean Gene. And I was talking about this with the OG Fig Kid from the Turnbuckle Tavern. And it's like all of your interviewers are just, you can exchange them and they're all the same.
And they do. Other than Renee, I can't remember anybody else who did it.
Me neither. It was Renee, and that was it. You never had another
woman here.
Exactly. And I think they're calling some up from NXT, and it's just, they're so interchangeable. I feel like you need someone like Mean Gene to kind of be like the uncrowned host of the WWE.
And Mean Gene wasn't afraid to give it back to these guys. If a heel was getting out of line, he'd tell them they were disgusting.
Absolutely.
I mean? So Mean Gene is definitely, he deserves his spot in the Hall of Fame. He is one of the best to ever do it. And he added so much credibility throughout many, not just this storyline, but many storylines as well, right?
Totally.
So, we kind of have to twist and turn a little bit here before we get to the Mega Powers. You have to talk about WrestleMania 4 a little bit. The angle leading up to the tournament with the $1 Million Man paying the Hebner twins, or paying somebody to get plastic surgery to look like a Hebner twin. They screw job Hogan out of the belt. Andre gives the belt to DiBiase. Jack Tunney vacates the title, and then you lead to the tournament at WrestleMania 4, which I do think is really funny, is that I don't know if you've seen this on social media, but the $1 Million Man has started a petition to get his title reign recognized. It's like as a joke, right? But he did defend the title. He defended the title twice on house shows, I believe.
Really?
He did. Right before he got stripped on TV, he had two house shows. I believe one of them was in Madison Square Garden. I want to say against Tito Santana. I might be wrong on that. But he did defend the belt at least on 2 occasions.
Wow. I mean, if $1 Million Man can petition for that, I should start petitioning for Brian Kendrick to get his WWE
15 seconds of fame as well.
Yeah, definitely.
WrestleMania 4, the coming out party of the Macho Man, if you will. 4 different matches, 4 different outfits. He goes over Butch Reed, Greg Valentine, the One Man Gang, and then we get the big finals that's leading up to the Macho Man and the $1 Million Man. Little side story here, right? The $1 Million Man has paid Andre the Giant to take Hulk Hogan out of the tournament, which he has done. They both got themselves disqualified after getting a bye into the second round. How great of a promo was Andre the Giant and Bob Uecker?
Well, there you have it. I still haven't found.
Here's the ex-champion. Don't worry about Vanna White. Now, Hulk Hogan, Hulkamania is over.
Hey, how about getting your foot off my shoulder?
Hey!
This is one of the, I didn't know that this was going to be in this lineup, because this is me and my dad's favorite promo of all time, just for that little part with Uecker. I also didn't realize how funny it is for Andre the Giant to just say the name Vanna White. That's just such a weird Vanna White's not here, or whatever he said. But just that iconic, why don't you get your foot off my shoulder? And
I love it. Hey, bud, I love Bob Uecker. Major League is one of my favorite movies of all time. I don't know if you've ever seen it or not, Charlie Sheen, but Harry Doyle is his character in it. And then after this, I went and watched a bit of Bob Uecker's Hall of Fame speech, and it is absolutely hilarious. He makes this line where he's talking to Jake the Snake, and he's like, "You want to meet Damien?" And Bob's like, "Who's Damien?" And he holds the snake up. He goes, or Jake's like, "It's pretty loaded, eh?" And Bob goes, "Yeah, well, so am I. Give me another beer." Bob Uecker is the king of one-liners. Like, oh man,
That's great.
He makes me laugh. I highly recommend anything Bob Uecker. He's the greatest person of all time. I had to get that in. I only put that clip in there just because I love Bob Uecker.
Fair enough. I actually wanted to backtrack a little bit to this Hogan and Andre match. Question for the professor. Didn't Andre win this? If Hogan hits him with the chair first, doesn't that mean that Andre wins?
Yeah. I mean, if you want to get technical and get in the way of a good story and follow rules, then 100%. But you could also say that the outside interference from Virgil and the $1 Million Man, who brought the chair into the ring first, who knocked the referee down. There was a lot that was happening here.
Right.
So, maybe the double disqualification was the right call.
Yeah. Good point.
And it has to get the $1 Million Man his buy into the next round.
Yeah,
right.
That's
He's
true.
got to get the easy way.
I was watching that and I was like, Andre got screwed. He should be moving on. What is this bullshit? But true, we wouldn't get Savage, I guess. So, we got to.
Well, that could be something that we can reach out on Twitter to a good friend of ours, Jimmy Corderas, and former 22-year referee, and maybe he can give us some clarification on that.
Absolutely.
So the Macho Man, and we're getting kind of a repeat here in the finals. Andre's out there causing all kinds of chaos, and Savage, leans over to Liz and whispers something. Here goes Elizabeth coming back out with Hogan, cheeks flaring, getting what he needs to do, and Andre's distracting the ref. Hogan sneaks in, steel chair to the back of the $1 Million Man, and we have a brand new WWF champion, the Macho Man Randy Savage, crowned. What a beautiful setting, by the way, that Trump building is. Trump, I don't know what it's called, the Trump Plaza or whatever,
something like that. Yeah. Trump something.
Trump something or other. Beautiful building. I just thought it made WrestleMania look very elegant. You know what I mean? Like just the way the lights clash with the banners. I just thought it was a great looking thing here. So we've got a new world champion in the Macho Man here.
I didn't watch WrestleMania 4 entirely. Obviously,
I would never make anybody do that.
I would never do that.
Yeah,
I would take the F if you assign that for class, but
I would get an F as a professor if I ever had to do that.
You get fired. We'll have to find a new professor.
In fact, I believe I specifically said in the clip that I sent you for the Andre Hogan match, just start it here.
Well, actually, I watched that full match just because I wanted to see Hogan and Andre at 4. I never saw it before, so I figured. But yeah, I mean, this was the point where I started to see that this was going to be the Hogan show. But I gave it a little bit, I gave it a pass because Andre costed him the match in the first match. So I was like, okay, it kind of makes sense, but I'm seeing where this is going.
Come on, Hogan put Savage over. He gave him the rub.
Oh,
the whole shot was Hogan pointing at Savage. Like,
oh, yeah.
All right.
Not the title or anything. It was Hogan that put him over.
It was a big close-up of Hogan and Liz on the shoulder, and Macho was just there, right?
Absolutely.
Well, so from this point on, Macho's running as the champion. He's working DiBiase at house shows. Hogan's kind of off doing his own thing. He's not really doing much. I don't think he's been on TV much. I think he might have taken some time off to do a movie, if I'm not mistaken. And we get into summertime, and Macho's just got his hands full with DiBiase and Andre. He's getting laid out by them. Andre choked him out off of the platform there. DiBiase laid him out from behind. Andre choked him out. So Savage needs a tag team partner. We've got this brand new pay-per-view called SummerSlam happening, 1988. And Savage needs a partner. And who does he turn to? But Mr. Handshake himself. Ooh, get it going, get it going.
You and I are fighting for different things, man. You and I are fighting for the love of all those Hulkamaniacs, for the love of all the madness, yeah. Number 2, Macho Man, you and I are fighting for the same lady, brother. She is now our manager, and you and I are fighting for her honor, Macho Man. The third thing we're fighting for is for the cause. Just like the phone call that was heard around the world, the handshake between you and me that will unite us as one being, the handshake of the madness and the Mania together will formally be felt and around the world. We will make the world stand still because this is the first public shaking of the mega powers, brother.
Whoa!
The Hulkster is back as Macho Man's partner. Pop quiz for the Prodigy.
Uh-oh.
Do you know what was almost the original main event of the original SummerSlam?
Wow.
It was not this.
Oh, man. I'm going to go for a shot in the dark here because this feels like something that they would do. Was it Hogan Andre again?
They were actually very close to signing Ric Flair from the NWA and bringing him in to fight the Macho Man at SummerSlam.
Wow.
But Flair decided to stay. Yeah, there was talks of Flair coming over, and that would have been the big main event.
Wow. At least they put this Flair Savage in the main event, and they didn't do it at WrestleMania 8,
Yeah.
but whatever.
That's a different lesson. That we will talk about that because I love the build for that. She was mine before she was yours. That is a great build as well. But again, we get ahead. There's too much good stuff to talk about in the class.
We've got a full class year ahead of us.
That's right. That's right. And unfortunately for you, there's no off season here. We're just gonna run you to the ground. So, you know, we got the Mega Powers versus the Mega Bucks. You get another wild promo with these guys, and they are fun. You have to admit, these promos are really fun to watch.
Yes, they are definitely. Yeah, I mean, just their energy, like I've been saying, they have that same kind of, they take up however long it may be, 2 minutes to 4 minutes. It's always energy the entire time. And having Liz in the background just makes it that much more interesting.
Yeah, and then you've got a wild card in the main event here that I couldn't find any clips to send you, but Jesse the Body Ventura was the referee for this main event.
Mm-hmm.
And the storyline kind of going into it was that DiBiase was shown on Brother Love just stuffing $100 bills in his pocket as he was cutting a promo, being like, you are going to do the right thing. And Virgil would give him another one. And I know that you're going to call this match right down the middle, right?
That's awesome.
So then you get the big spot. Did you happen to watch this entire match as well? Or did you just...
I did. This week, I decided, let me watch all the matches just to make myself as knowledgeable as possible.
How great did they make Andre look in this match?
Oh, really, really good. I was really happy that they presented him like as he should be, because it's refreshing to see a big man be a big man, and be presented as one, except for when you're, Omos or whatever in WWE. But another lesson that we'll never talk about. Question for the professor. What was up with Ventura moving the tag ropes at the beginning?
That was just him trying to establish that he's the man. I'm in control here.
Okay.
It meant nothing. And I'm pretty sure that even Gorilla Monsoon called him out. Like, this is stupid. What are you doing? But Jesse wanted people to know I'm in control. I'm the boss. You will listen to me. And, he showed that he got in Hogan's face and Savage's face. But I thought it was really cool when he got in Hogan's face. There was always that tension between those guys. And
it was
like a shoot, too. Like, Jesse didn't like Hogan very much. And
it was a complete difference from last week with Ken Shamrock as your ref that you barely knew he was there, whereas Ventura is getting in everyone's faces. It was a cool difference to see.
Jesse's got to be the star of the show too, right?
Of course.
He's got to get his stuff in. Going back to how we were talking about how they booked Andre, I just think it's such a sign of respect that Hogan and Savage showed Andre here, because he was well past his prime at this point. He could barely move around, and they just made him look like a monster.
Yeah.
But then we get to the big part at the end of the match here. Hogan and Savage are on the floor, and here comes Miss Elizabeth up on the apron. Very uncharacteristic for her. And my goodness, woo-wee. Class got a little bit hot on SummerSlam here, and Elizabeth drops her skirt.
Oh, look at that. What is this? She took off her dress. She took off her skirt, Gorilla Monsoon. Elizabeth has shot everybody. Look at Jesse. He doesn't know what to do. I don't believe her eyes. Look at the $1 Million Man. He doesn't know what to do. You don't know what to do. Look at Andre. He's bewildered. Everybody's shocked. Everybody's on their feet, Gorilla.
and the facial expressions on everybody was so amazing here. DiBiase, Andre, Jesse looked like his eyes were gonna fall out of his face. And then the great camera shot where you pan to the outside and Hogan and Savage
They're doing it again.
and then they get up and clean house. You get the big finish with the Mega Powers going over. But this was kind of the first time you saw that little look. Very, very little look, nothing major. You wouldn't notice it unless you look for it.
Mhm.
The Macho Man did not like seeing Elizabeth there and Hogan being friendly with her. But they pose, everything is fine. Mega Powers are victorious. What do you think about this match, and what do you think about the little bit of foreshadowing that they plant here?
I got a few points on this one.
Yeah.
First of all, Hogan and Savage, I was surprised how clean they worked as a tag team. So many just fluent tag team moves between the two. And it really just showed their chemistry together, which I loved. Another little kind of foreshadow thing that I kind of picked up on was when Hogan has DiBiase, and I think it might have been $1 Million Dream or just a sleeper hold or whatever. And Savage is going up to the top rope to go for an elbow, and Andre's on the floor. And Hogan looks at him and he tells him to go to the other corner. So he gets down, he goes to the other corner, and he goes up, he goes for the elbow, and Andre puts his foot up. So I think maybe that could be a little something too to kind of keep in the back of your head, like Hogan's kind of taking over here. And that actually
bossing him around, right?
Yeah, and that goes into my final point after I just wrote down LMFAO, such a strange ending, because there's no other way to put it. But it kind of ties into my last point of like, by this point, it officially feels like it's the Hogan show.
Yeah.
Hogan is, and I actually didn't even mention it in one of the earlier promos that they were doing on the Mega Bucks. I think it was August 6, 1988. I wrote it down. And Hogan just becomes so weird around Elizabeth in these promos. Like he's always like, she's not your manager, she's our manager. And like Liz gives Savage a kiss, and then Hogan wants a kiss too. Weird. And he was like sitting there waiting for like a whole minute, and Savage just did not acknowledge it at all.
Savage had his back turned, and I don't know if you noticed, he turned around and said, "What up?"
Yeah.
Hogan's wheeling your chick, much.
Oh man, like Hogan's becoming like very possessive of Elizabeth, and like even more to my Hogan show point, they're wearing Hogan's gear in every match.
Yeah.
Even Hogan's name gets called last by Finkel, like how they, here's your winner. He announces the WWE champion first, and then Hulk Hogan, which I think is just another little thing. And
the only thing they gave Macho was they played his music during their entrance for this match.
That's it. Then they played Hogan's music after the match to do the
Hogan's posing, right?
Yeah.
And I think as we keep moving towards this, like if I was the Macho Man and Elizabeth is my girl, like I'd be looking at Hogan being like, what is this guy doing? Like, that's my girl. Like we can all be friends here, but you're getting a little too comfortable. There's friend zoning, and then there's whatever, you know what I mean? Like, yeah, I'd be starting to get rubbed the wrong way here.
I'm seeing another kind of comparison to last week, whereas the heel has a point for the fans to kind of see his look at it. And from this point on, I was fully with Savage on this, because I was like, this is Hogan just completely taking over and being weird in the process. So how could you not support Savage? But we'll move on from that. But those are my main things from this whole match.
To see the seeds planted already.
The seeds are getting planted, brother. Yeah.
And I love that. I could listen to that all night. As we do move on, we're going to move on to the next feud the Mega Powers have, and that's versus the Twin Towers, the Big Boss Man and Akeem the African Dream.
Yes.
Formerly known as the One Man Gang. We'll kind of fast forward through this one because, it is what it is. It's two big guys for the Mega Powers to fight. So let's go to Survivor Series. I couldn't find this whole match to send you, so there are a couple points here that I don't know if you got to see. You might have saw them in later video packages for it. But Savage gets left out to dry in this match. Hogan gets handcuffed to the ring by Slick, and Savage, is getting beaten up by everybody, because at the time in the Survivor Series match, it was just Savage against It was Hogan and Savage against like 3 guys, I think, or 2 guys. And Savage is just getting beat down. He's looking for Hogan. Where's Hogan? Finally, Hogan hits Slick, who has the keys. Elizabeth picks his pocket. They free Hogan. Hogan wanders around, gets the hot tag, and eliminates Haku at the very end. And then you see it again, though. Savage is beaten down. And when he kind of comes to, Hulk Hogan has Elizabeth in his arms, twirling her around in circles. And this one was not subtle. The Macho Man was pissed. You could see it in his face. But again, he bit his tongue and posed with Hogan. What do you think about, we're moving forward? It's not so subtle. How do you like the seeds? How do you like the story being told right now?
Ooh, it's I like how slow this is. They're not, kind of wasting their chance or anything. They're not hot shotting it. They're giving it time to really, really breathe. Like they could have even shortened this feud a little bit if they wanted to, but they are definitely, stretching this out as much as possible. I guess they really wanted Savage and Hogan to be the main event for WrestleMania 5. So they are just letting this go as far as possible. But I guess now, you're really starting to see Savage kind of really plant those seeds. And you're going to especially see it once we get to the Royal Rumble in a few minutes.
Which is where we're heading here. But I'll go back to a point that you just made there, how they're stretching this out and whatever. It's one of those cases where, back in the 80s, there was only at this period 3 pay-per-views and 2 of them had just started. You know what I mean? There was WrestleMania, right? That was established. We've had 4 of them. The year before that was the very first ever Survivor Series, right? This year was the first SummerSlam. And then this would be the first Royal Rumble on pay-per-view coming up in January. So, and they didn't have 3 hours of Monday Night Raw to fill every week, right? They were doing their Superstars show once a week. It was mainly, squash matches to build up angles and build up storylines, but you weren't getting what you get every week now, where, you're getting these superstar matches. Like back in the day, if Jeff Hardy fought Karrion Kross, it would be a big deal because Kross would have been fighting enhancement talent for 4 months, and Hardy is an established star. So when they actually fight, you're like, holy shit, this is a big match we're getting this week. I remember like Sergeant Slaughter and the Berserker fought on Superstars when I was a kid, and I was like, I can't miss Superstars next week. This is going to be crazy, like, because they weren't fighting an enhancement talent. So that's kind of like, I always like less is more. You know what I mean? I think that as much as I love wrestling right now, and I think that the current product is very good. Every company has got their pros and cons or whatever, but overall, I think that the in-ring product is very good. I just think that there's too much. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
like, there's 100%. Too much WWE in a week for me to want to fully be invested on it. There's too many pay-per-views. I love the big 4. I wish it would go back. It's the one thing I'll say that I like AEW does much better than WWE. One of many, of course. I do like AEW. I like that they only have 4 pay-per-views a year.
Right.
I think they feel special that way. So I think that's my rant before we get on to the Royal Rumble.
Yes.
First
100% on all of that, by the way. Great point.
That's why I'm the professor.
Yeah, and I'm only the prodigy.
That's right. But that's why you're the prodigy, because you also get it.
I also get it.
You also get the Royal Rumble here. Hulk Hogan
indeed.
Kind of being an asshole again here. We pick up on this clip here when the Warlord is entering the ring, getting the fastest elimination, and that held up for about 20 years before Santino broke it.
Yep.
And then Hogan goes over to try to save the Macho Man, and he dumped out Savage at the same time.
And the Hulkster dumped Bad News. But he also dumped Savage too.
Look at, Savage is hot. Savage is blaming Hogan. I don't blame Savage. Hogan did that on purpose.
Wait a minute now, Just the Hulkster went over and dumped Bad News. In the process, here comes Elizabeth.
Now what is she doing down there?
Seems to be some dissension in the ranks here, Jess.
Mm-hmm.
And Savage was pissed, and he got right in his face, finger in the face. He's pushing him. Elizabeth has to run out to separate these guys. What are you thinking here now? And then of course the promo after with Mean Gene, where I overreacted, whatever, but I'm cool. It's cool. Like, what do you like? How you liking this angle here?
So 2 questions for the professor. Number 1, was there not the guaranteed title shot at WrestleMania yet? Why was
Nope,
Savage in this match?
That did not start until WrestleMania 9, 1993 was the first time they ever did that.
Okay.
So the first few Royal Rumbles, Big John Studd actually would go on to win that Royal Rumble.
Right.
And then Hogan would win the next two, and he was the champion for 1991 when he won it as well.
Oh, all right. That makes
Yeah,
a
so
lot more sense.
that
I was
didn't
like,
start
why
till
is Savage
93.
here to begin with?
That didn't start till 93. It wasn't uncommon to see your world champion in the Royal Rumble match.
Right. Okay. So then question number 2, similar to the whole champion topic that we're on. Did Savage defend that title on like a big match besides this Hogan match that we're about to talk about?
He got some Saturday night main events, but on big pay-per-views, he did not. He did not have a definitive. And you know what? That's something I never really even thought about either, because at the time, WrestleMania was the big event, right? Saturday night's main events were also a very big deal. So he did defend them against Andre the Giant, the $1 Million Man on those. Bad News Brown, he had a program with. So he was defending the belt on TV. They just weren't on pay-per-view. But you also remember, there weren't a lot of pay-per-views at this time, right? SummerSlam had just debuted this year with the tag match. The Survivor Series was in its second year, and that was all based around the Survivor tag matches, right? And then the Royal Rumble was the first ever pay-per-view was the 1989 Royal Rumble. The first ever Rumble was the year before in Hamilton, Ontario, but that wasn't a pay-per-view. That was a TV special, right? So Savage didn't really have that platform also to defend the title on.
Okay. Just wanted to clarify that, because like even I was going back and I was like, he never defended the title at all, which adds to the Hogan show whole thing where it's always him associated with Hogan. So just another thing I wanted to bring up there. But as far as this, we keep saying the seeds get planted, but this is definitely, you're starting to see these two pushing each other, going at it.
You're getting to the boiling point here. What
Yeah,
I mean? There's no more. I can't look past this anymore. Like you're getting to a real boiling point here. And we get to the big moment, Saturday night's main event, like we just talked about. Saturday night's main event used to be a really big deal. Like this was on prime time on Saturday nights. It would be often in this place of Saturday Night Live. When Saturday Night Live was on hiatus or whatever, they would always put on a special like that. Okay. They used to draw big ratings. So these were big matches, right? And you're getting the big tag team match, the Twin Towers against Hogan and Savage. You get this massive angle where Macho Man is thrown into Elizabeth. She got absolutely smoked by Savage here, like real tough bump she took there. Hulk Hogan is freaking out. He doesn't know what to do. He kind of just leaves Macho Man on his own and picks up Elizabeth and brings her to the back. He's calling for medical attention. They're not coming. So he takes it upon himself. He picks her up. Very dramatic, like he's almost like crying, like a little bit weird, you know what I mean? And then he gets her on the stretcher but he follows her to the back. Like, okay, she's in medical hands, like go help out your boy. But no, he's got to stay. He's holding her hand and crying, oh, are you okay? And then, finally she wakes up. She's like, what are you doing? Like, go help Macho. Like, Savage is just getting the shit kicked out of him out there. Hogan comes out and Savage won't make the tag. He gets his comeback, hits a slam, hits a whatever. And then he goes to Hogan and looks at him and just slaps him right in the face and leaves him. What a great move there. Like, how do you feel like this explosion finally happened?
I liked this whole angle a lot. And I think that 100% this needed to happen as far as the timeline that I was watching all of these videos already. I only saw Savage as the only person that had a reason for the fans to support, I guess, because Hogan was a dick this entire time. Like I keep saying, it's the Hogan, it's like you could have even put the title on Hogan and it wouldn't have made a difference. You know what I mean? By this point, because Savage in the entire build has been in the shadow of Hulk Hogan and the Hulkamania. So this is why I like this angle a lot, because now you have a reason to support Hogan, because now you can see that both Hogan is right, but at the same time, Savage is right. Hogan, I guess, did the right thing. He went with Elizabeth because she was hurt. And I guess that kind of buries the whole match, that she's more important than the match itself, but whatever. But then you can see it from Savage's eyes that, we're still in this match. This is important. So I guess they did a good job to build up Elizabeth to this point. However, with the relationship between Hogan and Elizabeth, though weird, was still a relationship, and it was a strong one. So it made sense for Hogan to go and support Elizabeth, which strengthens Savage's heel turn, because he's caring about this match more than he's caring about Elizabeth, which is, just heel Savage right there. But you're right, now that you say that, because medical was already there. Hogan's treating this like Elizabeth died, like he's praying over her deathbed, like, please, Elizabeth, please wake up. Like, she's okay, dude. You didn't have to leave your tag partner with two huge wrestlers out there.
Absolutely.
But I mean, yeah.
The one thing you can say is maybe the Macho Man did let his jealousy overcome. You should trust your partner.
Right.
Elizabeth is with you. You need to trust her, even if the creepy guy is being creepy. Right. But so Macho got his jealousy going. Then we get, the final big explosion here at the very end in the medical facility. The best line that Macho Man drops: "Oh, you got lust in your eyes, brother."
I can take anything, but I'm going to tell you something right now. Those eyes right there, those eyes, lust Elizabeth. You understand that? You got my face. You got lust for Elizabeth right there. And I'm going to tell you, it makes me sick. I can't even stand to look at you. You turn my guts. Oh, God.
Savage finally has enough. Hogan is pleading with Elizabeth, say something to him. Savage lays him out with the belt, gets over him, throws the punches, throws Elizabeth across the room like she was a piece of garbage.
Yeah.
And then you get Jabroni Beefcake in there. I don't even get me started on Beefcake. I'm not a fan of his, but Macho Man has finally done it. He has finally done the full-blown heel turn. Do you think that this was enough? Do you think Macho Man, this could have been a bigger moment, or do you think this just kind of set the mood just right?
No, this was exactly what needed to happen, and everything that could have happened. Everything from building up your relationship with Hogan and Elizabeth to go to this moment where Hogan supports Elizabeth, Savage's jealousy throughout this entire year, right? It wasn't just this segment, right? It was this whole entire year build since the end of 87. You know what I mean? So you have this entire build up to this one moment, and everything that happens within these next few minutes is just perfect. We already said those eyes lost Elizabeth, and he fucking throws her with such authority. I would say that was even more impactful than when Honky pushed her out of the way. And then, of course, Brutus Beefcake was just the cherry on top of this whole beautiful Sunday, I guess. I
think that cherry was a little rotten, but
yeah. But I mean, yeah, there's no other way that they really could have did it. You could see it now from everyone's eyes. Hogan's perspective, Savage's perspective, even Elizabeth's perspective. So now you get a very detailed and layered story that's going to take us into these next promos that are really going to bring all of that out.
And what you're seeing also, before Macho turned face, he always treated Elizabeth like shit. You know, he wouldn't let her talk. He would point her where to go. He was very controlling over her. So, that has come back out again now. He's not holding the ropes open for her anymore. He's back to being the asshole Macho Man that everybody knew from before. Right. Yeah. And now, in my opinion, I think that these next two promos that are coming up are the highlight of the entire build. Is you get a promo from the Macho Man through his eyes. He's saying something, oh, you said this, and they would show a clip of Hogan going, "I love you, Elizabeth," and he sees it as, "I'm lusting after Elizabeth." When then you see the next week Hogan, he's like, "This is what I meant." He's like, "I love you like a sister, Elizabeth." You know what I mean? So I thought it was a really cool promos that they did there. One week was the Macho Man's version of it. The next week was Hogan's version of it.
But what you said to Elizabeth is enough to get me to the boiling point. Yeah, I love Elizabeth. Hulk Hogan, you say you love Elizabeth? Well, I got news for you, man. Yeah, I got news for you. Elizabeth is gonna be in the corner of the Macho Man Randy Savage at WrestleMania 5. Yeah, I loved you like a brother, Macho Man. I meant it. When I say I love my Hulkamaniacs, I mean that too. You know, yeah, I love Elizabeth too, Macho Man, but not the way you twisted the story, not the way you edited the footage. This is what I really meant on Brother Love's show. I love Elizabeth just as much as the Macho Man does, but in a different way. I love Elizabeth like a sister, like blood.
I thought the details that they went into were very, very good there. They did a great job of making the Macho Man look like a heel and an asshole here for the first time. What I think in this whole build was, this was the first time the Macho Man looked wrong to me during this build. I thought these were great. What are your thoughts? Do you agree that these were the best two promos of the whole build?
Yeah, without a doubt. Like I said, I was talking to you off camera about this, and that I didn't really enjoy this build as much as I thought I would, simply because it was very one-sided this entire time. Like, you could only really see it from Savage's perspective. Whereas the Mega Powers breaking up, and especially these next two promos, Hogan specifically, that changed. And I think this is really what saved, I guess if you want to say, saved this feud in really supporting the face here. Hogan was on fire with this promo. He really just, you believed every word that he said. Same with Savage. I really like that Savage is even like twisting the story, like he's seeing it from his eyes that, oh, I love Elizabeth. And then Hogan saying as a sister. I also love Savage just going on about, you got to get your moves and your hot dog in. I love that so much, but it was like, because he's right. Like he has to get all of this in. It's always his music, his gear. You know, you never saw the Mega Powers wearing Savage stars or anything. It was always the yellow and red. So, so he's right. But now you could see that Hogan is right as well, which is, you definitely needed this. And it brought me right back into it. And I was ready for this match.
Yeah. And then we get into the final little build here. Miss Elizabeth is stuck in the middle. Mean Gene again being such a amazing interviewer. Which side are you going to be on? Are you going to represent the Macho Man? Or are you going to represent Hogan?
Elizabeth, are you going to be in Hulk Hogan's corner for WrestleMania 5?
No, I'm not.
Elizabeth, tell everybody all over the world whose corner you're gonna be in. My corner.
Elizabeth. In WrestleMania 5, are you going to be in the Macho Man Randy Savage's corner?
Of course, she goes, are you going to be in Hulk Hogan's corner? No, I'm not. Here comes Macho. Oh, she's in my corner. Yeah, the best. Screw Hogan. What, are you afraid to let her say it, Macho Man? You know, Mean Gene's giving him shut up, Macho. I want to hear from Elizabeth, like, which you don't get announcers doing, right? Nope. Mean Gene was not afraid to have that voice be told to help progress the story. And then, Elizabeth says, I'm not going to be in your corner either. Hogan's out. These guys are in each other's face. Pandemonium is running wild. And then we'll roll with that right into the go home promo that the Macho Man cuts with, which I also thought was one of the best promos in this whole thing too. What's your take on these last two segments before we get into the match?
Yeah, Elizabeth here is really, like, you could tell that she's just in the middle of this. They've done a really great job presenting that she is completely on a neutral side. She doesn't really give in to Hogan when he's kind of, I guess, lusting for her. She doesn't really give in to Savage ever since he turned heel. So she is completely in the middle here. You mentioned Mean Gene, everything that with this promo on, are you going to go with Hogan? No, Are you going to go with Savage? No, also no. Really, really good stuff here. And then the promo with Savage, of course, just another really fire Savage promo with the pukesters.
I love that too. Do you think that Elizabeth should have stayed with her man and went to the Macho Man? Or do you think that if maybe he didn't hit Hogan in that hospital room and throw her to the side, that she would have stayed with him? From a storyline standpoint, if you take Macho throwing her away like a piece of garbage there, like maybe it shouldn't have been a tough decision, but I guess that's where the decision came from, right?
Right. I don't know on this one. I think there must have been something like, part of me thinks the way that Hogan is backstage, I wouldn't even be surprised if he pitched to have Elizabeth on his side for a while, just to add to that. And I don't know how that would
happen later.
Yeah. I mean, I think it made the most sense for her to be in the neutral corner. If anything, it would have been, if I had to pick a side, probably Hogan, just because now there's at least a reason for her to be with Hogan, that he was with her in the hospital, the medical room, whatever. At the same time, she was kind of telling him to go back with Savage. So it's a tough thing. I'm not really sure.
I think if Savage doesn't throw her in that medical room, I think she stays with Savage, right?
Yeah, definitely.
But I guess, you can't really be throwing women around like that and expect them to stay with you either. So
Yeah.
I get the neutral corner here.
Yeah, very true.
I get that. 1989 was a lot different than 2021. That is for sure. And
yeah.
for good reasons. That
Yes.
2021 is like that.
Thankfully.
We do not condone the abuse of women on the class match classroom here. Absolutely not. And then that's it. So we're about ready to kick off in the match here. Before we get to that, are there any questions, any follow-up that we need to do here before we turn this over to you?
I did kind of have a question for the professor, and I don't know, it's more of an opinion-based question. How do you think things would have went if they didn't go specifically with the Hogan show and kind of either made it more 50-50 Hogan Savage, or led more into Savage being the champion and kind of placing him at the spotlight? Do you think we would have still gotten as big of a story as we did? Do you think maybe, changing up the gear to have the Savage stars on the trunks, or going with Pomp and Circumstance, how much do you think that would have changed the story?
In 1989, I don't think it would have changed a lot. Hogan was still the guy. He was the biggest draw in the company. I do a lot of parallels to the Macho Man's title run with CM Punk's title run, where Punk was the champion for over a year, but Cena was still the focal point of the show. Right. He was still main eventing the shows. You know what I mean? Punk was always in that mid-card championship role. And I see a lot of similarities with that. Macho Man was the world champion, and he was getting a lot of the attention on the shows, but Hogan was still the guy. And I just think that's something that no matter what, I think they did it with when Bruno Sammartino lost the belt as well. Every time he would come back, he was still the guy compared to whoever the champion was at the time. Same thing with Austin. Austin was always the guy. You know what I mean? That when Triple H won the belt, Austin was still the guy. That's just the way that Vince's mind frame is. I think he's got his certain guys that are the face of the company, and no matter what, they are always going to be positioned as the face of the company.
All right. Yeah, definitely. I just wanted to get your opinion on that, because I kept that in the back of my head. Like, what if it was the Savage show and not the Hogan show? And I think it wouldn't have made too much of a difference, because Savage, from what it seems, was very over by this point. But I don't know. It's so weird to put that like into an alternative universe and see that, whereas you're just so used to seeing gold and red in the real American playing. But besides that, no further questions.
So that takes us to April the 2nd of 1989. We are in the Trump Plaza, Atlantic City, WrestleMania 5. The Mega Powers explode. Hulk Hogan challenging WWF World Champion Macho Man Randy Savage. Mr. Prodigy, the floor is yours. Tell me about your impressions watching this match for the first time.
All righty. Right off the bat, similar to this whole narrative of Hogan being the star, the champion comes out first, and then the challenger comes out. And the commentary alluded to it. This isn't something that you always see.
Jesse was pissed.
As he should. I mentioned earlier on in the show, you could have swapped out the champion to be Hogan, and it wouldn't have made a difference for me. So I thought that was just a little note to bring up here. But I thought the match was pretty decent. I didn't think, it was the perfect match, anything close to what we saw these last 2 weeks, but it was very good from a story standpoint, and also, from an action standpoint. I like the inclusion of Elizabeth here simply because it tells the story well enough that she's not over-welcomed. She's not in every move. She's not in every spot. The camera isn't on her the entire match. It's just, Savage runs to the outside. We do the little catch me if you can. And then Savage puts Elizabeth in front of her before Hogan throws that punch.
This is like a cat and mouse game right here. This is just cat and mouse. Oh, come on, give me a break. That's ridiculous and disgusting. Brilliant. Hey, the champion pulls out all the stops, Gorilla. Yeah. If there's something there you can use to your advantage, why not? Sure, if it means knocking a woman down, besides taking her out of the picture, do it. With what Elizabeth has pulled, hey, a punch in the nose might not be so bad for her.
And then we do Savage falls to the outside. Elizabeth checks on him. Hogan gets attacked. I think he gets thrown into the ring post. Elizabeth checks on him. And then the referee just says, that's enough. Get to the back so we could focus on Savage and Hogan.
Whoa, Savage decking Hogan. It looks like he wants a deck Miss Elizabeth, too. He's shoving her back. He's getting her away from ringside. Referee heading her right down there. Look at this. He just put Miss Elizabeth out. Hebner, all right, he's getting rid of her. Now we'll get down to wrestling.
So I think that was...
I like how she blocked the post there. I don't know if the camera picked up on that or not, and the one you saw, but Hogan had Savage up for the slam, and Elizabeth stood in the way. No, don't do that. Don't do that. And that's... Okay. And then Savage threw Hogan into the post.
Right. I didn't even catch that. Wow. Good detail there. But yeah, like I said, it wasn't too much of Elizabeth, which I think was important. It's especially for the main event, of WrestleMania. I'm sure Donald Trump didn't want to sit there and watch a love story play out for 20 minutes. So we did get a lot of good action, although who cares what Donald Trump thinks, but that's besides the point.
That's correct.
So regardless, so the story aspect, stayed its welcome pretty well, didn't overdo it or anything. We send Elizabeth to the back, even with her out there, and especially with her gone. You get these really good bursts of action, even in the early stages of the match. It took me a while to get into this match. I actually had to watch like the first half of it twice. Like I watched the first half and then I stopped and then I rewatched it again because I wasn't getting into it. But then I kind of focused in a little more. Early on, I talk about how important a slow build match, the beginning stages are in our other episodes, on how important it is to keep people invested. Because like I always say, I'm impatient and I just want to see the main portion of the match. And I think they did an okay job with it. Savage playing into his heel persona, going on the outside, whatever. So for the most part, it was okay. And it just seemed very slow early on. But like I said, those bursts of action were really, really good. I also mentioned how I like the psychology when, you focus on a body part. This was definitely here with Savage focusing in on both Hogan's left eye that got busted open, which I like to see a little color in this match, as well as a good chunk of the match after Elizabeth leaves, where he focuses a good amount of moves on his neck.
Yeah, throat in the neck. Yeah,
right. And Hogan was selling it pretty well. That's another thing which I liked about seeing Hogan in the ring, is that he sells not only for the moves and his opponents, but he also sells in a way that kind of very strongly connects with the crowd. I saw that especially backtracking a little bit to the WrestleMania 4 match. where, you know, Hogan's selling of Andre's kind of demise. You know, he's going down to one knee and he's looking around at the crowd like he's about to go down, brother. You know, he keeps doing that.
Hulkamaniacs to pull him up, right?
Yeah, exactly. And, you know, he does it really well here.
I thought he does it well here with his throat when he's very over dramatically.
Yeah,
like he's like flailing his arms out. Very famously, I think in WrestleMania 3, he does that as well when Andre slams him at the very beginning of the match, and he hits the mat and turns on his side and is like, oh,
yeah.
He's very good at getting the people in the nosebleeders to be interacted in this match.
Right, like he'll reach for the crowd, like, you know, he'll reach around. I really like that. I like how this, I guess, era of wrestling is very connected with the audience in the crowd. Even with promos, they always cut it on the hard camera. They're not looking at the you know, now you'll see like Drew McIntyre cut a promo and he'll look at the interviewer, like he won't look at the camera unless he's like, Randy, I'm talking directly to you or whatever. They're always looking directly at the camera, which I like. It makes that connection with the crowd, and Hogan's a master of that. And I like that he, you know, transcends that into the match itself. Savage got a lot of offense in here. You know, Hogan, like I already mentioned, is selling. But what I didn't like was how easy the finish was. Savage hits his elbow. Hogan kicks out pretty quickly. And then, you know, we get the checking the arm, you know, and then he keeps it up for the third one. Give your punches, react, you know, go crazy, do your punches, hit the leg, hit the big leg, 1, 2, 3, and that's it. So I didn't like how easy it was, but that's what you have to come to expect with these Hogan matches, is that when it comes crashing down and it burns inside, he's going to take a stand and win in 3 seconds.
Place has gone bananas. The Hulkster is humped up. All those moves, he's impervious to that pain. Look at the look on his face. A block and a right hand and another one. I can't believe this is happening. Oh, there's the big boot. With the boot. And the leg drop. 1, 2, this makes me sick. He did it. I can't believe it.
Wrestling Federation Heavyweight Champion, Hulk Hogan!
This entire building has become unglued.
So, yeah, I mean, for the majority of the match, especially when Liz leaves, you get just action, action, action. And, you know, even though I say I don't like it, the ending kind of ties into that whole portion where it's just, you know, very fast paced action because it was a very quick finish. You know, he hits his big boot, he hits the leg drop, and that's it. So it ties in kind of well, but still, like, Hogan wins, LOL. And yeah, I mean, that's the conclusion of this feud. And I thought it was okay. I gave this match for a classroom grading, I gave it about a B or a B minus. I wasn't really feeling it that well. As far as the feud, I don't think I gave that a grade, but I also would say around a B, maybe to a B plus. Definitely wasn't as connected to this feud as I was to the previous weeks, but I think that's just because the era that it was in, it was very, you know, superhero-esque.
Yeah, very cartoony.
Right.
80s,
and
right?
yeah, and someone like me who's been watching for the last decade, that's definitely not of what you've seen. You get more reality-based or realistic wrestlers, and, you know, this seems more like a cartoon. And although I do like, you know, Hogan's energy and I like Savage going over the top, it gets a little bit too much. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So especially with both of them being like, you know, virtual copies of each other, not copies, that's a negative connotation, but, you know, energy wise.
Yeah.
Yeah, it became a bit too much at times, and it seemed like too much of a cartoon. And that kind of reflected within the feud itself, but the match kind of saved it. Maybe I'll bump it up to a B plus, but I think I'll keep it at a B for now. And yeah, that's all I really have to say about the match.
I totally agree with you about the finish. I just thought, I don't mind Hogan kicking out of the elbow drop, but I thought it was all very telegraphed. I thought that, you know, he already had 2 feet up in the air ready to kick out at 1.5.
Yeah.
I didn't like that. And I also didn't like that after. I don't mind the hulking up thing. It's a fun little thing. I get it. It you know, it's different. It's not really a realistic part of a match, especially in a big feud like this, but it's fun to watch. But I don't like after how he dropped the leg. He just barely covered Savage, and that was the end of it. No hooking the leg, no whatever. Like that really rubbed me the wrong way. I'm the opposite of you though. I really enjoy the build to this. I think the build for this is an A for me.
Okay.
I think the match is a B. But to me, this main event is what WrestleMania should be.
Right.
It is 2 of your biggest stars in your company, 2 larger than life characters in the main event of your biggest show of the year. That is something that I think that WrestleMania has lost over the years.
Yes.
I don't think you have this. You don't have these matches that people are clamoring to have anymore.
Yeah.
And I think that goes back to what we said on the overkill of the product. You know what I mean? Every feud, you're seeing 10 matches on Raw before the pay-per-view. It doesn't feel special anymore, right?
Yeah.
Hogan and Savage did have a run of house shows before this feud happened. When Savage was a heel, they had many matches together, but it was never really on TV. It was never on a pay-per-view. It was never in a setting like that. So this felt fresh, right? But I just, you know, when I think of WrestleMania, I think of Hogan Savage. I think of Hogan Warrior. I think of Cena Rock. I think of, you know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely.
Taker Edge, like these big superstars.
I mean, when was the last time that you saw a build for not just WrestleMania, but really any match go on longer than a year?
Yeah.
Rock, Cena, because it had to, because they announced it a year in advance.
Yeah, but that's like cheating, you know what I mean?
Right, exactly. You
That's
never
cheating.
see something like this, especially with your 2 big stars. And as far as, you know, the feud itself, those last few promos I would grade as an A, because that was really, if you could have sold the match on the breakup of the Mega Powers and those few promos alone, and I would have given it an A. But I think just everything with Hogan, I would have even dropped it down to like a B-, or even, I don't want to say a C+. That's a little bit too drastic, but even a B-. So I think those promos itself save it to be that B+. But yeah, the match, I feel like it was almost like anticlimactic in a way. You have
That's a lot of Hogan matches in the 80s, right? Because
you
it's
have
always
like
the big bootleg drop Hulk.
right? But like in the way that you have this long feud for over a year, and you're just going to end it with the hulking up. At least,
well, these guys did keep going after this.
Oh yeah,
but it was different though. It was because they would go on to main event the next SummerSlam, but it would be in a tag team match. It would be Hulk Hogan and Brother Brudai teaming up against the Macho Man and Zeus, which is a whole different build, which that deserves its own show on its own. We will definitely look into that at some point down the road. So final question before we wrap up class today.
Yes.
Did the right guy win this match?
Yeah, I think so. If you asked me if the right guy won without, you know, the final, I keep saying those final few promos, but that's really what it comes down to. If you ask me if the right guy won after that Mega Powers breakup, I would say maybe no. But at the end of the day, you have a long reign with Savage. Hogan at the end of, you know, this whole feud is the one to cheer for. You know, he's putting his morals in front of him. Savage is twisting the story. Hogan is, you know, still just this fireball of emotion, and that really shows in everything that he says, everything he does. So you could look at it from either way. But although I was supporting Savage, I think Hogan was definitely in the right to win here. I think my only gripe in saying that is that Savage, although his reign was a year long, you didn't really have that much of Savage as champion as far as, you know, big defenses, big rivals.
Yeah,
he was associated. Yeah, he was at the hip with Hogan this entire run. I feel for Savage because his reign was kind of tarnished with Hogan. He was associated with it, although obviously one of the biggest feuds that's still talked about to this day of all time.
Mhm.
Still, I would have liked to see what Savage could have did on his own. I guess it's just Vince's mentality, like we mentioned, to associate Hogan with him. So, it's very hit or miss, but at the end of the day, with everything being taken into consideration, Hogan probably had to go over for this one.
And it's funny you say that, because the next time Savage would be the world champion would be in 92 when he beat Ric Flair. And he kind of had the same thing. He didn't get to main event anything because SummerSlam 92 was in Wembley Stadium, main evented by Bret Hart and the British Bulldog. Savage was with the Warrior in the mid card.
Right.
And then he had lost the title before the Survivor Series, and he was in a tag match in the Survivor Series anyways. So
if anything, I think that is the complete opposite of what we were talking about last week, in that does more to devalue your championship if it's not in the main event. And I get the whole Wembley Stadium, sure, but that's your main championship. You need that in the main event. You know what I mean?
I'll give it a pass on Wembley Stadium just because that's.
But even in this feud, you want your world championship to be at the head of things, and it really wasn't until the Mega Powers broke up. You forgot that Savage was even champion to begin with. It was all just Hogan and Savage, and then all of a sudden it's like Hogan's. Oh, well, I also want that championship from you, so.
No, I'm with you, man. That being said, that is going to put a bow on the Mega Powers exploding. Before we wrap up class today, I need to tell you your homework assignment for next week.
Yes, I'm looking forward to. What is it going to be?
Next week, we're gonna kind of find a mixture of the last couple of weeks. I'm gonna find this match has a great story behind it, and it has a lot of violence behind it in the match.
Ooh.
And we're going to go back to 2004, but the feud starts in 2003. But the match we're going to be talking about is from Backlash of 2004, the Legend Killer Randy Orton and Mick Foley.
Nice. This is a match that I've always wanted to see.
Yeah, this we're going to see the whole story, how we get here. This is going to cover the birth of the Legend Killer. This is going to cover what I think, in my opinion, is Foley's last big run as like a top dog in the WWE. And a match that I really think, if it didn't happen, that Randy Orton wouldn't get to the level that he is at today. Do you have any final thoughts before we sign off for class?
I don't think I do. I think this feud speaks for itself. And if you at home are watching or listening and you haven't checked out this feud and you didn't do your homework, make sure you go ahead and check out this whole feud, which will be in the comments below in a nice little playlist. You got some good stuff in here. I will definitely put it to you like that. You got some really entertaining matches, really entertaining promos, and you get to be mad at Hogan. So, I mean, it's a win-win all in all. But yeah, I mean, this was definitely a fun detour off of what we did from last week, and I'm looking forward to a complete deep detour into this next build, next feud, next match.
Well, I guess all that's left to do is to say, on behalf of the Prodigy, I am the Professor, and class has been dismissed.